So like I was cool, but like it was like, yo, you are the one of the worst people in human history, and like I'm cool. He's the Black Joe Rogan, which is hilarious to me.
Yes, that is a good analogy. He
Whoa,
is.
whoa. Hold your horses.
Call me old man Wade.
Damn you, old man!
Wait.
Old ass man.
Shut up, old man. You smell like fart.
No!
Old man.
He's so old, he got a podcast on cassette.
Fuck, you're old.
Damn it, Wade.
Word life.
Yo, can I tell you, I'm actually kind of mad that I just found out Brandon's close by, because if I had known you were where you say you are, I would have definitely made a weekend trip to go down there.
That would have been awesome.
Where you at?
I'm in Maryland.
Oh, that ain't that close.
I mean, it's a 6-hour train ride.
6 hours.
It
Yeah.
shouldn't
Oh,
be
that's
that long.
Acela. Oh, yeah, they got the Acela.
Don't get me on. I just went on a rant the other day about being pissed at the auto lobby and the plane in the airplane lobby for fucking us over on not having high speed rail like in Europe. If you go to Europe,
Yeah.
they don't fucking fly anywhere. They get on the train and it's fast as shit and it's cheap and it's comfortable and you get all across the country. I read
you
that
know
they had
who built that though?
who built
You know how fund all of that infrastructure in Europe?
what?
The
Nazis.
good old USA.
Really? I thought it was Nazis.
Nah. The
No, it
USA
wasn't
built
Nazis.
the USA money, Marshall Plan, billions of dollars of investment that allowed Europe to have better infrastructure than us. And also,
Well,
pretty much universal health care in a lot of places
Hold
and
on.
cheap education.
Yo, I want to point something out. Javi, you were in the presence of MJT so long that you said the good old US of A.
I say that sarcastically.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, I was in the shadow of Mar-a-Lago this weekend, so I don't know what happened. Something probably happened to me.
We could, and here's the thing: we could have had all that. We had the money, but they lobbied it away because the car dealers were like, if you build good public transportation, why would people buy 2 and 3 cars? They wouldn't. They would just.
But I'm
hop
not
on
worried
the
about the
train.
car dealers because the car dealers and business owners and all those people were always complaining about spending tax dollars on infrastructure. But you had presidents like FDR that say, "Fuck that! I'm building the infrastructure anyways. We're using we're gonna tax you 80% or whatever it is on your top earners or whatever, right? And we're gonna build a better America because a country isn't judged by its richest people, but it's judged by how we treat our poorest people.
Exactly.
But then you have people like Nixon and Ronald Reagan with the bullshit welfare queen model and all this other shit while they're funneling drugs into the hood, arresting our. Oh, see, I'm super woke right now. But anyways, yes, we could have had all that.
I haven't heard Supa Woke in a while. But yeah, I wouldn't have
had all
because of that. Because this all I wouldn't, not to take over the show. This will be like 1 minute. But when all that shit was happening with Southwest, like in the Southwest was going through all that bullshit, I started reading up on it, right, and reading up on the history of like why do we have this shit? And I'm looking at it and I'm like, they have 7 flights a day. Think about this: 7 direct flights a day from St. Louis to Kansas City in the same fucking state.
Wait, that is
7 flights a day. Why do you? And I'm like, and it's like a 37-minute flight. It's literally like a 37-minute. So we're wasting jet fuel 7 times a day to go between St. Louis and Kansas City. If we had a high-speed rail like they have all throughout Europe and in Japan, that trip would be like an hour and 30 minutes, so like an hour and 20 minutes. It's like an hour and 20 minutes. You add like 20 minutes on for the flight. It's like actually it's less than. It's like I think it says like an hour and 7 minutes, something like that. If we had like a high speed rail to go from St. Louis to Kansas City, instead we have right now. If you take Amtrak from St. Louis to Kansas City, it takes almost 4 hours.
That's crazy. Well,
because
of
that, people. Yeah, good.
We have pseudo high speed rail for the Northeast corridor. So like Boston, New York, DC, Philadelphia. We have the Acela train. I've never used it, but apparently,
I've been on the Acela.
Yeah, how
it's still slow compared to Europe.
Yeah, I'm looking at I'll give you an example, Javi. I'm looking at the Acela train from Boston, New York. It's 3 hours and 45 minutes from Boston to New York.
Yeah, it'll take me that
Depends.
long to drive. It'll take me that long to drive there.
Yeah, so that's
Exactly.
And
It should be an hour and a half trip, or at
Mhm.
most, it should be like an hour train trip from New York to Boston with high speed rail. You
Yeah.
could live in Boston and work in New York.
Oh shit, maybe that
Like that's how they do in Europe.
maybe
it
that
is
trip to
crazy.
Maryland's
People do
8
that
hours.
still. What up?
Maybe
Yeah,
that-
Maryland is an 8 hour drive.
Yeah.
You got to drive through New York, New Jersey,
Philly.
parts of Philly, I think, Delaware. Then I think you hit Maryland
Yeah,
after that.
Maryland.
I had a girlfriend. I used to go to Coppin State, and I used to take the train down there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How y'all doing, man? It's been a minute.
Yo, can I tell you that I fucking hate podcasters and I hate podcasting.
Say more.
So I love talking with you guys. Like honestly, if I didn't have conversations with really interesting people or have the co-host that I have, I wouldn't podcast at all. Like
Podcasting is hard, bro.
it's
People don't realize.
so I'm gonna say this. And don't take this as arrogant because obviously my numbers don't reflect what I'm about to say. I don't think podcasting is really that easy. It isn't really that difficult when you're in the right setting. Like you guys make my life so much easier because all I have to do is come up with the topics, send you guys the topics, and then we literally just have a conversation. Now there have been maybe
Well, I don't know if you know this, but I'm kind of an expert myself. Well, me and Brandon are kind of experts ourselves.
So thank you, Norman Osborn. You know, I'm somewhat of a podcaster. But like, yo, I hate this shit because I used to hate listening to I've been hate listening to a podcast for the last like 3 months. Can't stand this dude anymore. I can't stand he's sexist. He's one of the biggest hypocrites I've ever met. And then he talks over his co-host. And then like when they fire back at him, he gets all in his feelings. So I actually just stopped listening to it altogether because I don't
Is
care.
this co-host women?
One of his co-hosts is a woman now. And I think that was
Does he use
that,
the phrase red pill, blue pill a lot?
no.
Okay.
This podcaster is a former rapper who allegedly fucked over his friends.
My favorite podcast not featuring an old man. Nice.
So like I was cool, but like it was like, yo, you are one of the worst people in human history. And like I'm cool. He's the Black Joe Rogan, which is hilarious to me.
Yes, that is a good analogy. He is.
Whoa. Hold your horses. But anyways, I'll let you smoke. Go ahead.
He's a Black Joe Rogan. Like and it's funny because one of the reasons I don't necessarily dislike the dude is for the
Are we gonna
same
say his name
No.
or no?
Why?
Okay.
He gets enough. Everyone who's listening to me, y'all know who he is, especially considering allegedly fucking over his friends, because I don't know what happened in that situation.
Yeah.
But he's playing a character.
Uh-huh.
So because he's playing a character, I can't necessarily be mad at it. However, I do think that we all have certain responsibilities to our people, especially minorities, people of color, et cetera, et cetera. Excuse me, specifically because we may not like look at each other as like the representative of the culture as a whole because we are pieces of an entire culture. But you know how it is. If you do something bad, you represent the entire culture. If you do something good, you're a piece of the culture. I forget someone said that recently, so I don't want to take credit for it, but I can't remember who said it. But it's true. You can't do anything bad if you're Black and then not reflect on everybody else. But if you do something good, you're a piece of it. Like, why can't someone like Malcolm X or Martin Luther King or like Prince, why aren't they a reflective of the entire community? But if someone does something bad or negative, it's like, oh, it's the entire community, it's the entire genre. Like, you know what I mean? So I got to a point where I was like, I just can't listen to this shit anymore. And I'll probably go back eventually if someone says, oh, yo, listen to this, things were different, da 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 da. But for now, I'm cool. And which is funny because I started listening to his buddies, his former co-host podcast, and I fucking love it.
Yeah, I like we say I don't remember their names, but yeah, I hate the fact that they had to split because I think they were a good balance for him. I think it's two co-hosts, they have differing opinions. They challenge him, but at the same time, a lot of what they say, I think I disagree with as well.
But you know what's funny is I disagree with Ish a lot. I disagree with him a lot. But I think the difference between me disagreeing with him is because even when I disagree with him, come at me with some type of real explanation. You know what I mean? Don't say water isn't wet because I said so. But if you look up the definition, it's like water makes things wet, and you give me an actual definition of it, and like, you know, and explain it in a way that can further a discussion or even like help your conversation, then I'm cool. Like, and I love Parks. Parks is my guy, but I was like, it's not enough for me to listen to their host just be one of the worst personalities I've ever heard. I'm like, I'm cool. And like I said, he's a Black Joe Rogan, and I blocked Joe Rogan on Twitter. So why the fuck would I listen to the black version of him?
All right. I mean,
I
get
agree.
that. Yeah, I get. So I'll be the devil's advocate.
I also never listened to that show before because of what that person did to that person's ex-girlfriend, which is pretty despicable if you read about it.
So I agree with you. My only thing is he was never convicted, and the people who he said that to have like recanted.
But I think him and his ex-girl, is that his baby mother? I think they. Oh, go ahead.
No, I think that was the thing. So she didn't recant.
Yeah.
She never recanted.
Yeah, she never recanted.
I don't think they. But don't they do have a relationship now? Don't they? Like
his excuse
was
good
now.
Yeah, his excuse was, oh, it's two people trying to hurt each other. Like, that don't make it okay.
I don't know what he did.
No one knows.
I need to read that. Yeah.
We don't know. Like, she says that he hit her. However, she didn't recant saying that he didn't do that, but what she did say was the way she went about doing things was wrong. So that could literally mean that what she said was a lie, but we don't know. No child.
That's why I don't like getting into that stuff, man. Like I get it. Like I get. Especially, I mean, I don't know if we're gonna talk about it. This is pretty new, but the situation with one of the Rick and Morty creators who's been kicked off the show for domestic violence, which has been confirmed, and all that other stuff, right? So like we know what he did, and we know that he deserves those consequences. But a lot of times in these relationships, like we don't know what's going on, and especially with celebrities, anybody can say anything, and it gets picked up. And as somebody in the public, facing the public, you can't really defend yourself fully because once it's in public opinion, it's a wrap. So I don't know. I don't know, man. I like the dude. I like him. I like him. If I read more about what he did, I don't know if that might change. But it's hard for me to judge someone based on what sounds like speculation, and the victim involved.
Well, she says that he beat her and caused her to have a miscarriage.
Oh shit!
So while she was pregnant, that's what she says.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she did have a miscarriage, so that did happen.
Yeah.
So,
but I do know couples that fight. I know couples that I do know couples that fight, like literally like hit each other, right? Both of them, and it's toxic and it shouldn't happen, and they're both being abusive to each other, and that could also be the situation. That could have been happening when she was pregnant, and my wife is pregnant right now, and I make sure there's stuff not on the floor so she can't trip, because her falling, anything can happen, can cause an issue. You know what I mean? So if they were already in that type of relationship, which they should have been in, that those things can happen, and who do you blame for that? Like, do we blame the person? Like, who do we blame for that situation?
Keep your hands to yourself.
100%.
You know what I mean? Regardless of who.
End of the day.
So yeah, I feel like Whoopi Goldberg did. You can't, and this goes for men and women. You can't do something to somebody and then expect them to act a certain way because of the way they should. I'm not hitting a woman. That's just me. I believe that a man should not put his hands on a woman. That's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, I'm with you too. I'm not really. I get what people say. Like, if you hit someone, you should be prepared to get hit. But honestly, I don't even know if I could hit a
Well,
woman if she
it's
hits.
not,
I just it's hard for me to. I can't.
but it's
I don't
not.
know, bro.
No, you're not. You're not because you're a good person. You would hit a woman if it was a life or death situation, and nobody would blame anyone for doing this. So if a woman has a frying pan or gun, and you defend yourself, obviously no one's going to be like, "You hit a woman. What's wrong with
Yeah,
you?" No one's
yeah.
going to say that. But it's like it's like saying, "Oh, my 12-year-old punched me, so I knocked his ass out." No,
Yeah,
like I don't not. I'm not gonna knock
Yeah.
my 12-year-old son out cold, give him a concussion because he punched me because he was being a brat. Like
Hmm.
no, like you can say no sometimes.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what it is. It's like as adults, like I said, like we all have different
Yeah.
personalities, and like if I've seen,
Bro, I'm 250. I'm 250 pounds, bro. Like, I'm short, but I'm heavy, and I know I hit hard. I've been in fights,
I'm gonna
like,
tell
you know
you
what I'm
like
saying.
this.
So I'm like, I'm not. I can't. And I'm not. This is not. I know there's a lot of women that could probably beat my ass, but I, I would be told. Bro, I can't hit kids, and I can't hit women, bro. I
So
can't
here's
do it.
so here's my thing with, and I agree with you guys. I
Yeah.
absolutely agree. However, if you put your hands on somebody, you run the risk of getting hit back. Period. When you talk to people a certain way, you run the risk of them being crazy. Like I tell people all the time, like I've seen it at work with like, yo, what happened? Like this woman, yo, this was, fuck, I can't share this, but I'll tell you guys off air. But some wild shit happens at my job, and I'm like, well, you can't always expect people to react the way you want them to or the way you think they should. And we've seen this a lot. Now, if you're hitting a woman, you're a piece of shit. Period. I'm not for this domestic violence shit. And I also had this dude at my job, and this was the funniest. It wasn't funny, but it really showed me the type of person that I'm dealing with. I called R. Kelly a pedophile. And he goes, "You can't say that." I go,
What?
I go, "Why the fuck not?" He goes, "Well, if you're going to call him a pedophile, then you got to call Michael Jackson a pedophile." I go, "You mean the guy who literally everybody who accused him of him has recanted?" Well, they did it for money. I'm like, he's dead now. Like, there's not like they're not recanting because the guy's alive and they're going to give him more money. Like, he's dead. What are you talking about?
I
And
could
I'm.
also call Michael Jackson a pedophile,
Yeah,
and that's okay. Like,
Yeah.
what are you
Yeah. You can
saying?
call
Like, oh,
anybody that messes.
but even
Anybody that
that,
messes with
like
kids is a pedophile.
yeah. And he
you
was just
can't
like, you
call
can't.
Bill Cosby a rapist unless you're going to call Harvey Weinstein a rapist. Okay,
Oh, so
Harvey
that was the
Weinstein's
other
a
thing,
rapist.
and that's how it
They're
started.
both rapists.
And that's how it started because I called Art because I also called Bill Cosby a fucking rapist. He's like, "Yo, you can't say that." I'm like, "Yes, I can." Like, well, he wasn't convicted. I'm like, "Yes, he was." I'm like, he got
We
off on
got
a
to stop doing this thing of defending black people with what about the white person? The idea shouldn't be a white person gets away with something, so we should get away with something. It should always be a white person should get punished like we get like if we get punished. So like if a black person rapes someone, they should be punished. It shouldn't be like, well, Trump got away with it. Trump should be punished, not like, oh, if Trump got away with it, we should. It should never be that way. Like we got to
Hmm.
stop with the like idea that like we should like the goal is not to be like I would say this with like some of my black male friends. I'm always like the goal is not to be white men. Like the goal is equality. Like that's what it should be. It shouldn't be. Remember that article a few years back when it was like straight black men are the white people of black people,
yeah,
and that
Yeah,
was like
I shared
very
that.
true. It's very true. If you read that
Yeah,
article, it is very true. Obviously, it's not all like the black men listening. I'm not saying all of you are that. Like, and if you say that, then you should probably read the article because you might fit if you took it that
yeah.
way. But that's true.
We are
Like
also we are also black men.
the goal isn't to be straight white men and to have that type of privilege. Like the goal should be to have equality, right? And so, like, I hate when people. I hate that so much when they do that whataboutism with other terrible people. I'm like, yes, they're. What you think? I'm not going to say they're terrible too? Yes, they're terrible too.
yeah. Like, miss me with that shit. But I'm also the same dude at my job who's called out like just like if you're sexist, I call you out. If you're homophobic, I call you out. Like we had somebody in my job who identifies as a man, and people kept calling him it, and I flipped out. I'm like, yo, I was like, do they identify as a man? Yes. I'm like, then say he. Well, like I don't, and I flipped the fuck out. I was like, I don't understand how fucking difficult this is. I was like, call the person by their goddamn name. Like, call them what they want to fucking call them. I was like, how would y'all feel if it was you and someone was calling you like a nigger or something like that? Like, how the fuck would you feel? And I spazzed the fuck out.
I identify as that nigga, so please,
Well, that,
you can call me that if you want.
well, that's all fine. That's all fine and well. But like, I hate that shit. Like, yo, like, cut that shit out. And then someone was like, well, why are you taking offense to it? I'm like, what if I had? I was like, what if I had a family member who's trans? Like what, like, or transitioning? Like, how the fuck would you? How, like, you don't know what the fuck someone else is going through. Like, miss me with that dumb shit, man. Like, and furthermore, we're supposed to be better than this. Like, that's my big thing about that is like we're supposed to be better than that. Long story short, I don't want to even get into like all this other stuff. Like,
no worries.
Fucking people.
You know how BBN episodes start. We're right on brand, bro.
This ain't fucking BBN. This is the Old Man Wade show. Fuck it, yo. Ugh, man, whatever. Y'all want to hear a funny story that happened to me in a strip club?
When did
Yes,
you go to the
please.
strip club?
This story happened years ago. It was actually kind of this story happened years ago. So I don't know if Javi ever has. Brandon, have you had a lap dance before, right?
Yes.
Javi, have you ever had a lap dance?
Yeah.
All right.
When we was at that, we was on Rhode Island.
Oh, I didn't know you had one then. So
Yeah.
I don't necessarily like. All right, so I'm not like on firm usually when I like on a lap dance. Like, you know, it's like you got to be like spectacular for me to be like, you know what I mean, like ready to go. But this particular stripper went to work. Like, I was like, yo, best lap dance I've had in my life, right? So after I leave, I adjust myself, right? I walk back down to the table. Yo, this stripper, this different stripper, mind you. I walk down to the back to the table, and she literally just pokes me on my dick.
Did she say, "Yo, did you give her the Pillsbury Doughboy laugh?"
she was like, poke. I was like, what the fuck? And I just busted out laughing. She goes, I couldn't help it. And I was like, can you imagine?
She say she couldn't help it. She say she couldn't help it.
Yes.
They're hilarious, bro.
I was thinking about that shit. I was washing dishes, and I was like, you know, because I was trying to think of like stupid story to tell you guys. How would y'all react to something like this?
I don't know.
Honestly,
'Cause
bro.
the strip clubs I went to, that's not how that happens. you live a totally different life than me way up there, bro. Because I only been to Southern strip clubs, Southern black strip clubs, and Southern black strip clubs are like a nightclub. It's like a totally different vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A totally different vibe.
Yeah. Strip clubs appear like
Picture that.
the strip clubs appear like dark bars. I don't know, man. I don't like the
yes,
vibe, bro.
Hobby.
Like, I don't.
Hobby, that's perfect. That's exactly what they are. They're really just dark bars.
Mm-hmm.
that's not like the strip clubs. The strip clubs I go to are like big bombastic nightclubs, light shows, music, like people dancing with each other, not the strippers at everybody's table, food is flowing, like it's like a giant like event.
I would probably enjoy strip clubs if I lived down south. Like I don't like them up here, bro.
You know what it is? They
nothing special about them, bro.
They lack the savoir faire. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they lack.
It's like, what's the point? Like so, if you go to a strip, like, what's the point of going to the strip club, right?
I can tell you the point of going to a strip club. Like, for me, it's like you said, it's a dark bar. I go there to drink with titties out. That's what I go. I go to drink beer and with titties out. That's literally all it was.
And that's your reason, right? So there's multiple reasons to go, right? But for me, I would want to go with like y'all, my boys, and like listen to some like dope ass music and see like some real strippers doing some crazy ass pole dance tricks and like celebrity strippers that I seen. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, throwing out like like crazy money, like make it like a music video. But here, I feel like, you know, you come here when you get laid off from your job. You're depressed, you know what I mean? Like,
Well,
Uh,
Javi, you're traveling now. When you next
Yeah,
time, if you go to Atlanta, go to Magic City.
yeah. I'm gonna be actually. I'm gonna be in Houston. So
Houston strip clubs are
I'm
insane.
gonna be
That's what got
so
James Harden in trouble.
yeah. So you know, you're gonna have to show me. You're gonna have to show me what it do when I'm in Texas.
yo, why doesn't James Harden just buy a strip club or like own one or like
No, it's fun when you're the owner. It's fun when you walk in there and you're James Harden,
Yeah.
and
it's
everybody knows you're James Harden.
yeah, but just do the Jackie Moon thing.
What's that?
He also I don't know if he. I mean, he probably could afford to own a strip club, but maybe not the strip clubs that he go like. Them strip clubs be. He probably could do that. Probably could do that, but it wouldn't be
Yeah.
as fun.
And honestly, the type of money like we look at James Harden, some people like they go like that's stupid. He's spending so much money, but he makes so much money. For him, that's nothing. You
Yeah,
know,
James Harden's
like
made almost $300 million. He's fine.
yeah, he's good. You know, he's this is fun. This is instead of playing video games, he goes to the strip club.
You know what's funny?
That's his
Drake's the
hobby.
same way.
Yeah.
You want
Yep.
to be at the strip club the night that Drake's there. Trust me, it'll be the best night of your life.
That's what I'm saying, man. That's not happening up here, bro.
All right,
It's
can
not
I ask?
happening.
You know what? Speaking of Drake, I have a question for you guys about legends.
Legends.
Legends, and I'm not just talking specifically about Drake, but he comes up in the conversation. I was listening to some old Eminem. A conversation about Snoop came up, and just other rappers who have been around for a long time. It also
Mhm.
brings me to Chris Claremont.
What a transition! What a fucking
Mm,
transition!
mm.
At what point do we acknowledge that a legend is not what they once were?
Well, first, I would have to agree with the premise.
You mean like Tom Brady?
I don't really see. I take sports out of the situation because I think there's a lot of decay, like not decay, but you lose certain things when you're like doing things physically for as long as you have. Like
Yeah.
Michael Jordan wasn't gonna. Well, Michael Jordan's different. Like even like fat cigar smoking Michael Jordan was still putting up triple doubles. Like you know what I mean? Or LeBron James, who like made sure his body is in peak physical condition. But when it comes to the things of like the mind, you can adapt. Obviously,
Mhm.
there are exceptions to the rule. People end up with mental disabilities, but you should always make sure that you keep up with the time. I'll give you an example. I'll use myself as an example. I know the classics. Dark Phoenix, the original Crises, Nightfall. I know the classics. I know what happened in the classics. My level of expertise, if you want to call it that, starts around Avengers Disassembled, and it's usually Marvel.
Mhm.
I make it a point to see how trends are going. For example, we'll take Nightwing 100. Not Nightwing, not just Nightwing 100, but Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths. It ends with the Justice League being disbanded and Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman offering Nightwing the kings to the castle. It was a nice transition for that specifically because the same kind of rosters don't work anymore. Like you know what I mean? Like people want to see new rosters. We'll take the next run of Avengers. And I said this on a previous show with Javi, and I said I hope that Carol Danvers is running the next Avengers team. She's confirmed to lead the next Avengers team. The new Avengers team is all full of people who've all been on that roster before, but they've all gone through different things. Nightwing isn't leading the Justice League; they're still the Titans, right? Brian Michael Bendis took the new Avengers and made it this eclectic team of street heroes who were more relatable. Luke Cage, Wolverine, Jessica Drew, Jessica Jones, Spider-Man, characters who aren't as powerful as they were. Even Doctor Strange wasn't the Sorcerer Supreme when he was on the team. Well, after after the whole thing happened. But when he came back to the team, he wasn't a Sorcerer Supreme. Now, you get someone like Chris Claremont, who has been a comic book legend for decades. The last couple, if not few, comic books of his that I read have not been good. They're dated. It's like a person who decided that they weren't going to try to adjust to the times. So much so that his recent run of Extreme X-Men isn't even set in the time of the new age of Dawn of X. It's set back when Kitty Pryde was living with Rachel Summers in Chicago. So there's no adjustment to the time. There's no adjustment to this. Snoop, he may not be the best. He may not be the rapper that he once was, but he's found a way to continuously make himself a commodity. He's the most popular rapper of all time, and it has nothing to do with rap. Eminem can be called one of the greatest rappers of all time. I don't necessarily agree with it, but if someone says it, I'm not going to argue with it. He is batting under 500 with good albums. So at what point do we say he's not the greatest rapper of all time? Especially when you have Nas, who put out 2 classics in the last 2 years in like what? I don't even think, considering how good those albums were, he's not even in the winter of his career. Jay-Z doesn't put out albums anymore, but when he puts out a verse, the verses are fucking immaculate. So my question to y'all is, at what point do we have to say to ourselves, either A, these people aren't good as they are, B, we change the definition of what a legend is?
Do I know? Because they're still a
Man,
legend. You could be a legend and fall off. Peyton Manning, I know you didn't use sports, but Peyton Manning's last year, he couldn't turn his neck to the side. He couldn't throw the ball 15 yards. But he's still a legend for what he did when he was legendary, right?
Yes.
The X-Men would not exist in the way that they do today as a cultural icon without Chris Claremont. He made the X-Men.
1,000%. 1,000%.
The X-Men got canceled in the 60s when Stan Lee and them were writing it. Chris Claremont came on the issue after Giant Size X-Men 1 and wrote the X-Men for 20 years almost, through the late 70s, throughout the 80s to the early 90s. And because of all the stories he told and the character development, the characters he created, we got X-Men the animated series and all the X-Men movies and the X-Men video games. And the X-Men are these big, larger-than-life, well-known pop culture characters because of the stories and development that Chris Claremont does. So nothing he does today in terms of like his comic book writing will take away from the greatness that he did in the past and what he built. So he'll always be a legend.
Okay.
He may not just have it anymore.
So
maybe he need to write something different. Maybe he need to try something that's not X-Men.
I 100% agree. Like with that, that's just essentially what I was gonna say. Like, you're a legend, not because of what you're doing now, but because of what you did, your impact or whatever it is.
So I agree.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. I cut you off. Sorry, go ahead.
I think we need to separate 2 concepts. I think we have legends, and I think we have like things that are timeless. So,
Here we go.
There we go. Chris Claremont's style may not be exactly timeless. Something that doesn't. It might not age well, but again, we're not judging his legendary status based on like his ability to not be boring in the future currently, right? We're talking about what he's done. I want to talk more about Nas though. I think Nas,
real quick, just because I want to give a definition of legend: a traditional story, sometimes popularly regarded as historical, but unauthenticated. An extremely famous and notorious person, especially in a particular field. The man was a living legend. So yeah, by definition, you guys are right. But continue. You gotta say something about Nas.
yeah, I was just Nas. So Nas created 2 really good albums, out of I think 4 that he's done in the past. 3 or so years.
Okay.
I think we need to give Hit Boy a lot of credit for his current success. So
Absolutely.
Nas took his legendary brand, his name. Sorry, there's an alarm going off up here.
No, I can't hear it. You're good. I can't hear it.
Yep. His name, and he tied it to someone who's current, someone who can take that timeless, Nas lyricism and add it to beats that are relevant to today and hit today, right? So I think people like that should always be progressing. They should always be looking at what's new. And if they want to continue their careers and they don't want to get stale, they're going to want to adapt. And I think that's what certain people like Nas do. That's what certain people like Snoop did. Snoop has bypass rap, and he's making children's cartoons now. So
Yeah. So let's look at some of the stuff Nas did. Let's look at. I'm gonna just run through this discography in order. Illmatic, it was written. I Am, the autobiography. Nostradamus, Stillmatic, Godson, Street Disciple, Hip Hop is Dead. Nas, Distant Relatives, Life is Good, Sounds Like You, NYC 2016, Illmatic, Live from the Kennedy Center, Nasir, King's Disease 2, and apparently put out something called Magic, and King's Disease 3.
Has he done anything good after Stillmatic?
Has he done anything what?
Has he done anything good after Stillmatic?
King's Disease 2.
King's Disease 2, King's Disease 1.
King's Disease 1 was not that good.
Again, it's opinion. I thought King's Disease 1 was fantastic. Wait, which one? That's not the Kanye one, is it?
I think King's Disease 1 was the Kanye West one.
Then I'm thinking of King's Disease 2 then. Because
that's with Hit Boy.
That Kanye West album was absolute trash, but I don't blame. But there's a lot that goes on there, and I thought Life is Good was okay. It's got one of my favorite Nas tracks on there. It's the one with Amy Winehouse. I think it's called Cherry Wine. That song is like fantastic. But even with the Nas album, I don't know how much of it necessarily is Nas not being as good as he is, as opposed to just like maybe the production team is wrong. Maybe the coherency is wrong. Maybe in some albums, actually just, not even just albums, some projects, whether it be movies, TV shows, classic cinema, or whatever it is, some of it just isn't ready for the time. I think there are certain comic books, I believe, that we could agree that just weren't good when we first read them, but going back and reading them in retrospect are good. Like me, let's take the two of you guys who told me that Secret Wars is better if you read it all at once. And I loved it after you guys told me that. And then there was a conversation. I heard this from you guys separately. Then together we came back and you said, yo, Mark, you need to read the Hickman stuff. You need to read Avengers, New Avengers, Fantastic Four Hickman. It'll give you a better appreciation of something. Also true. So when I say things like that, it's sometimes like just mentally for all of us, depending on where we are in life, depending on where we are with our significant others, things can like art is subjective, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. Long-winded way of saying art is subjective.
I agree.
But I will say this.
But is art subjective in the bit? So it's kind of like pro wrestling, right? Like in 2023, a lot of people are into match quality and how good the matches are, right?
Yes.
But there's a reason why it didn't used to be that way, because it used to be a lot of casual wrestling fans. And now it's not a lot of casual wrestling fans. It's people who love wrestling and then people who don't watch wrestling, right? It used to be people who love wrestling and then a large group of people who enjoyed wrestling, but it wasn't like their hardcore thing. And back in the day, wrestling, how good a wrestler you were was not how good I performed a 450 splash or how good I performed. And a little bit it was in the ring. I'm not going to take that away. Like Ric Flair was great because he was a great in-ring performer. But what you were really judged on in wrestling was how many people were in the seats, how many butts were in the seats, how many tickets did I sell? A little bit later, after you got into the 90s, how many pay-per-views did I sell? You know, how much merchandise am I selling? It's a money bottom line business. I could argue that rap or music is at that level, like that matters too. Like we can't, like I don't think you can talk about that in that way without that mattering, because in a way, like some of you like, well, this person's underground, they never got found. But also, like some things are like, how much do people resonate with you? Like, how much do you resonate with people? Like, they're great rappers that just can rap, but I feel like there's a lot more that goes on to rap. So, like, I feel like there are objective ways that you can judge those types of things.
I agree.
Yes,
I absolutely agree.
and art is subjective. Like art is subjective, but the subjective part is how people perceive it. But
Yes.
it can't be totally subjective because art can also flop.
Hmm.
Things flop. Things an artist can put their heart into something, put it out there, and everybody hates it.
Hmm.
Case in point, the Martin Luther King Embrace statue in Boston. Look it up.
Is that even a statue?
It's a statue, and I get it, whatever. But I think a lot of times, and this is the problem. We go back to legends, and here's the issue I have with some legends, like say Tom Brady and some others. Um, they lean so hard on that legend status that they don't want to take any criticism.
I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that.
And oftentimes the excuse is like, well, people don't understand it, whatever, right? But I get that. But what's the point of putting out art that no one understands but you?
You got me again. You're gonna get no argument from me on that either.
You know what I'm saying? So I think you have your own personal art, your own personal collection of stuff that you keep to yourself. But if you're gonna put something out into the public, you should expect some blowback or some people not to see things the way that you want to see them. And you know what? If people don't see you as a legend anymore, that is what it is. But if you had an impact on the game and you see that, yo, be happy with what you did. And I think that, whatever. I don't know. Art, we're gonna grow. Art's gonna grow, man, and new things are gonna happen. People gonna hate. I know. I remember when mumble rap was the thing that all the hip hop historians hated, and I defended it. And now we have classic mumble rappers, right? We have
Do we?
Takeoff.
Oh, do we?
We do.
Do we?
We do.
Do we have classic
look at
mumble rappers?
look at the response to Takeoff,
You
right?
do?
But that doesn't mean classic, right? So like,
You would have called the
like
Migos classic at this point.
no, was Snoop Dogg a classic rapper in 1997? No, or 1999? No, he became a classic rapper in like 2012. Like you got like if
That's yes.
I don't think we can say this rap is classic yet, because like people are still listening to rap from the early 90s and mid 90s. Like even the
97
young
Snoop was
people,
97 Snoop is No Limit Snoop, right?
yes,
Death Row
he was
Snoop is
just
definitely a
Snoop.
classic. Death Row Snoop was definitely a classic in 97.
But here's my thing.
No,
Like
he was just popular. I'm talking about like I don't think we can
classic.
call people classic if they don't last the time, like
Yes,
the
you have
time,
to.
like
You have
over
to
time.
you have to surpass the test of time for something to be called a classic. Like when someone says an
The
instant,
Rolling Stones are classic. They sell out a stadium in 2023, and they started touring 40 years ago. That's that's classic.
like we could call like Wu-Tang, A Tribe Called Quest, they are classics. DMX's first couple albums are classics because they've survived the test of time. Now, 10 years from now, we can have a conversation about how we
Yes.
feel about the Migos and things of that nature. Or
So
like,
hold on.
hold on, let me get this point out, Bobby.
Yeah.
Drake. I'm not a Drake fan in terms of music. There's some songs I like, some songs, and for the most part, I'm not a Drake fan in terms of music. However, in another 5 years, a conversation could be had about whether or not, if you're reading this, It's Too Late is a classic. As of now, it sounds like it should be a classic. But it like
Drake is also the greatest rapper of this generation. Despite what you and I may think, he is the greatest rapper of this
I agree.
generation.
But
So we talk about the test of time,
but
right?
Drake
We talk
is
about
less,
the test.
but Drake is
Hold on,
wrestling.
Javi's trying to say something. Hold on, go
I,
ahead.
I
we
just want
talk
to
about the
I'm gonna forget. I'm gonna
Yeah.
forget. Drake is
Yeah.
wrestling.
All right, we'll get to that. Hold up, because I want you to explain that. But we talk about the test of time. So how many years are we talking here?
I honestly think it depends on the person who we're talking about, because the three of us may all
I
have
think you need 15 years.
15
Yeah,
years.
so
Okay. I mean, okay.
I could also agree. I could agree with anywhere. I could agree with 10 to 15. I could agree with 10 years. Like, you know what I mean? So
Okay.
we're all gonna have different timetables with
So
classics.
the first major album the Migos dropped was 2015,
Okay.
and that's not to mention all the how they were pretty much super popular and successful in the southern region, right? With
And they were,
younger people
and they were
at that
super.
time
They were like
for
the
years.
epitome of SoundCloud rappers who like made it a point to be on
Yeah.
SoundCloud and then put out really good like work.
So if we're gonna be fair, like I get 15 years, but we're going on almost 10 years for
How
that
much do you
major
think of
album
the
release.
Migos? How much do you think the Migos' popularity outside of people who are deep into hip hop, like the pop culture popularity of the Migos, is tied to one of them being married to Cardi B?
I don't think it's tied. I don't think that that's that important, to be
I
honest
don't
with you,
think
because that member wasn't even part of the Migos for the beginning because he was in jail at the time. But I think that I think that's relevant, right, to a certain extent. But what I'm trying to say is that, okay, let's talk about their pop culture influence. Like the Migos, you could ask somebody about hip hop and probably the jungles of Brazil or something, right? And they're gonna probably imagine someone that looks like the Migos because that's what, unfortunately to
Well, yeah.
old school hip hop heads, that's what hip
Well, the
hop looks
South
like
won.
now, right? And then their sound, and then not just the sound, not just the South, but their particular sound, the Migos' particular sound, right? Once Drake hopped on it, I think Drake helped propel them with that first track that gave them success.
I
Forgive
actually
me,
think
I
people
don't remember the
still.
names, but that
I
sound
actually. Oh, go ahead, Javi.
it's everywhere, bro. It's everywhere. Every new, almost like, 4 out of 10 new rappers have very similar DNA to the Migos.
Well, I
So
think
their
there's a
impact's
difference
going to be
between,
felt forever in hip hop
but
for
that's
people that, unfortunately, people that hate them. So I would
that doesn't
say
I
you
mean
can
mean,
give them
classics.
classic.
you should give all
Yeah.
that credit to Soldier Boy. Soldier
Um,
Boy is the most
Soldier,
influential.
so
so
Soldier
Soldier
Boy,
Boy is the
Soldier
most
Boy.
influential rapper in the last 20 years.
Yeah,
hold
I
on,
don't
hold
want
on,
to
hold
say
on, hold on.
I don't want to say
Real
legend,
quick,
but he's a
real quick,
legend,
real
bro.
quick,
I
real
agree.
quick. Javi, I
Yeah,
agree with you. He is a legend. But
yeah, I agree.
what you're describing isn't classic, it's influential.
Mm.
To be influential, but not be classic. You could be influential and not be a legend. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you one hit
Like
wonder.
if I go here we go, old man. If I go to people of any age group, anybody over the age of 15, so 15 to 60, let's just say 15 to 60, right? Or 65. Let's do 65 when you retire. If I go to an event with people between the ages of 15 to 65 and I put on Hypnotize, what percentage of the people in there of any race, gender in America? Let's just use America because I can't speak for outside of America. In America, any race or gender in America between the ages of 15 and 65, I'm assuming probably 70% of those people are going to know it, and he'll hypnotize when they hear that song.
I
They'll know what
would,
that song
yes.
is.
I was trying to
Or
think of a number. I was gonna say 80, but 80 seemed too high. So I'll meet you in the middle and I'll say 75. And the
or if
reason
I say nothing but if I play nothing but a G thing, somebody's heard that song before.
nothing but a
If I
G
play,
is lower, I think, because
I think it's higher.
the reason I say
Probably.
Hypnotized was in Oreos commercial. Nothing but a
You're
G
right.
thing.
Yeah, you're right.
Nothing but a G thing isn't going to be something
But
that
even like just think about the
But
classic songs from the
you'll get
90s and
the
early
same
2000s.
you'll get the same percentage of people, I guarantee it, if they put on Versace or Bad and Bougie,
I
right?
don't know.
Because
I don't
those
know.
songs
What,
are
They're not.
I don't know Versace and I don't know Bad and Bougie.
you guys don't know
They're
that, but I'm
not.
talking if you play those songs in a wedding, you're gonna see blonde white girls, you're gonna see 30-year-old women, you're gonna see 40-year-old men
Look at the
knowing
ages
those
you're talking
lyrics,
about.
bro.
Yeah,
You're
but
Look
gonna
at the
know
ages you're talking about.
but you
but
lose them
that's what
after
I'm
like
saying.
40, you lose them between 45 and 65.
What the
What I'm saying to Javi is The 15-year-olds and the 20-year-olds, they know Biggie and Tupac and the Dr. Dre songs too.
So
The
what?
And I'm
40 and
saying,
50-year-olds know those songs.
So so do you think? So here's a question, Javi, and I'm genuinely asking, and I'm not asking this question to spark a debate or anything like that. I'm genuinely asking.
oh, this is fun.
Oh no, but because I don't want this. Because the question I'm going to ask is it may sound accusatory, and it's not. Do those songs survive the test of time? Like, for example, Triumph. We knew Triumph was going to be around forever. Like that was Triumph is the ultimate posse cut. DMX is Slipping. We knew that was going to. Gin and Juice. That's going to do that. There are more.
I like Big Butts.
Yes, there are multiple Drake songs, and you know me, I'm not a Drake fan. There are multiple Drake songs that are going to survive the test of time. But
there's a lot of trash that's going to survive the test of time. That will, I mean, I would say trash to people that have a certain perspective on hip hop that survive. There's a lot of MC Hammer songs that survive the test of time. You know what I mean? That were, I mean,
MC Hammer's a legend.
He's a legend, but he wasn't the greatest lyricist in the world. You know what I'm saying? Like,
exactly. That's my point. It's more to rap than just how good you can rap.
Yeah.
That's why I make the wrestling analogy.
I think we make it the same point.
Yeah, MC Hammer's a legend. I'm saying that, like, people talk about the mumble rap, and I'm not sure the mumble rap is going to last the test of time.
It has. I don't think we realize how long.
It's been around like 6 or 7 years, 10 years maybe.
Much longer than that. Much because before the Migos, we had a good 5 years of Future. You know what I mean? We had a bunch of that.
The Southern rap has lasted a longer time, right? Like the Ludacris, the Atlanta influence rap.
We used to call up north. We used to call a lot of, like, you know, that DJ Screw style trash rap until people understood it.
Well, the South won the war. I mean, I think the
war,
South won the war. There was a war. Southern influence in hip hop won. There's a northern influence in hip hop, and there's a southern influence in hip hop.
I think it merged, bro. I think it merged. I think it merged.
Southern hip hop,
but it merged. There would be no southern hip hop without northern hip hop.
Prince Montana,
you
right? Prince Montana.
You listen to they influence everybody's
from
influence,
New York.
bro. Yeah.
He doesn't sound like a New York rapper. He sounds like a southern rapper.
No, let's talk about drill rap. Drill rap that came out of Chicago, refined in New York, refined in Britain, in London of all places, right? And there's a lot of southern rappers.
I want to commend you because I was trying to think of a specific style, and drill was the perfect example.
Yeah, drill's what it is right now.
That's
what yeah.
Yeah, but I'm talking about hip hop culture. Hip hop culture is driven by southern culture today. But Atlanta, New York used to be the mecca of hip hop. It's Atlanta.
But that's what I'm trying to say. But I think it's influence. It's a feedback loop. So that southern style helped craft, especially in the Midwest, because those connections with the Midwest and the South. There's a lot of connections between those, right? So it made sense that drill as a mixture of like that kind of that Midwest, that kind of northern city mixed with that South beat, right? In a little bit of griminess, right? That was a merger, bro, right? And now that was cultivated in the North, right? And a lot in the Northeast, also in Europe, that's starting to influence Southern rap as well. And we're starting to see differences coming out of that. And I'm saying that I feel like it's a feedback. We're all one people, bro. That's how I feel. Like, I get it because I know people that was into that. Like, Southern rap is that. I always like Southern rap. People was talking like Master P's, Trash, and all that other stuff. I loved it. Right. So
it was definitely
you're preaching to the choir, bro. You're preaching to the choir. Like, I just think that we see it as a war, but at the same time, bro, it's all one thing. That's my.
If you think about this, Javi, from 1985, right? Like Run DMC, LL Cool J, Can't Live Without My Radio, till I don't know, like 2005, like the Black Album. New York was the center of hip hop. It was.
Yeah, but you also had
that's what I was gonna say. Early 2000s, it started to change. You got Cash Money and No Limit. And Outkast is blowing up, and then in the next, so think about from 2000 to 2020. If you took all the most popular rappers in the country, what 65% are from the South somewhere? Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Texas, like they're all like it's all from there in the next 20 years. Like it's all from there to the point that now people come out from New York and they got Southern producers on Southern beats. Like it used to be, and this is one thing I do miss about hip hop. There used to be regional differences in hip hop, right?
Yeah.
If I put on a song from a nigga from LA, you knew he was from LA from the way he rapped and from what he rapped about. If I did that from someone from Brooklyn, if I did that for someone from Chicago, if I put on old school Scarface from Houston, you knew that was Houston. Chopped and screw music was different. If I put on Uncle Luke from Florida, that was different. And I could tell Bone Thugs from the Midwest and Twister and that style.
Yeah, I'm angry. So I'm angry you're bringing up examples I wanted to bring up because you're saying that time frame. Go ahead.
No, I keep cutting you off. Go ahead, Javi. Sorry.
No, I'm talking too much. I feel, bro.
No, you're fine.
I feel like that doesn't like if I put on a song, if I put on if I just went the top 20 rap songs and just played the songs,
yeah,
I would not be like, oh, that person's from LA, that person's from Oakland, that person's from Chicago. I would have no idea.
So I just want to double back real quick because you brought up some examples I want to bring up to kind of not counter a point you made, but kind of just explain my perspective. So that time frame that you bring up where Northeast hip hop kind of dominated, I disagree to a certain extent because I think hip hop culture, we think rap as hip hop, which is not. I consider R&B and everything hip hop. Like in my mind, that's all the culture.
That's fair.
You know what I'm saying? Like we had like 112 and we had like, Boys to Men, that New Jack Swing. We also had like, a lot of go-go music influences like EU, like a lot coming from those Spike Lee joints. Like a lot of that vibe was going on. Then we had the West Coast, right? We had the West Coast. We had Death Row, Tupac, even though he started in the Northeast. You know what I mean? Dr. Dre. And then down south, we had Luke Skywalker, bro. Like those dudes they had so much influence on him. They're the reason why we had Uncle Luke.
Okay, I was like, wait, what?
Right?
Yes, but if you went to the top 20 Billboard in 1995, 12 of them are going to be from the Northeast. 14 are going to be from the Northeast. And then you sprinkle in the rest. That don't mean like Death Row and Dr. Dre didn't blow up. Like that's how you got the East Coast, West Coast beef because they got so popular, right?
Yeah,
I'm saying New York was the mecca of hip hop. It just, it's where it started.
But it still is
hip hop.
It still is.
Not anymore. Atlanta is the center of Black culture. Period.
Oh yeah, facts. No, I'm not arguing with that. But you ask
all Black culture.
I'm kind of like I don't bring up my hip hop nerdishness a lot, whatever. But you're bringing me there, whatever, right? But I've listened to a lot. I've listened to a lot of hip hop, recent hip hop artists, who I like. Again, I'm gonna explain. I'm gonna use Takeoff, who rest in peace, who passed away, who I think was one of the most underrated rappers out there, right? Because of his style. He was amigo, right? But everybody in hip hop respected him. Everybody respected him in hip hop. And when you listen to him and other people like him, they would tell you their influences are still classic Northeast rappers. Method Man, all these those are the people that they used to listen to and they still listen to and they get and they learn. Like they understand. Like a lot of these dudes, we think they don't understand hip hop, but there's a reason why they're successful. They're better at it than we.
Oh, yeah,
you know what I'm saying? And they understand it.
Yeah.
And then when you listen to these people, and I don't care what people think. I'm talking about the people that are creating the art. I hear their influences. I hear it. You know what I'm saying? I know where it's coming from. I hear Biggie. I hear Bone Thugs and Harmony. Cleveland. You know what I'm saying? Cleveland. We underestimate the Midwest. Virginia. We got the Clips. Pharrell. You know what I mean? Like
Pharrell and Chaz are responsible for some of the greatest songs on the East Coast and the West Coast and down south because NERD and all the stuff like they were doing. Nori wouldn't be Nori without the Midwest.
Facts. And people were hating on Nori back in the day, bro. But hip hop loved him. You know what I mean? Hip hop loved him. He was making hits.
I mean,
I think again,
Kanye West.
yeah.
Hell yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
like necessarily what he's doing, but look at what he's like responsible for. A lot of Jay-Z's greatest hits are come from the Midwest. They come from Kanye West. They come from Pharrell. Like, you know what I mean? Like, these are the people who obviously, like, New York is like the biggest thing for him, but like, look at what the contribution that we're getting from certain things. Now,
Yeah.
the one thing I will say with how it's hard to differentiate between the genres and the coast and stuff like that. I kind of feel like it's us when it comes to certain comic book things where it's just like we know because of something that we like engulfed in. I think with hip hop and just from the hip hop shows that I listen to, they know because there are certain intricacies that you can point out within a sound that's like definitely this and definitely that. Like you can tell a New York drill from like OG like Chicago drill. Like I just found out that drill originated in Chicago. I thought it was a New York thing because the first time I remember like liking it and hearing it was Pop Smoke. And I was like, yo, this shit is like a real, like this is like Pop Smoke's Many Men. Like that shit hit like some 90s music. I didn't realize that that particular style originated in the Midwest, but that's just my
Bro, 50 Cent. Like, you just 50 Cent as an influence for Pop Smoke, not only for Pop Smoke, his style of rap is everywhere. Like, everywhere, bro. He, South, friggin' Africa, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
that's how
dude.
the DNA flows.
And speaking of 50 Cent, like he doesn't get the credit that he deserves. But he was like, I remember when 50 first popped off, he couldn't go anywhere without security. And it was funny because security isn't here to protect me, protect you from because security isn't here to protect you from me. Security's here to protect me from you. And because like he's 50's always been with the shits. And the stuff he created, like his first studio album, Get Rich or Die Trying, is a fucking classic. It still holds up to this day. And he's also gone forward and took it into the footsteps of the Ice Cubes, who hip hop wouldn't be what it was without Ice Cube branching out and creating Friday or starring in Boys in the Hood or shit NWA, like beyond rap. And so this is what I mean by when we talk about these legendary particular things. Like, for example, to bring it all back to Chris Claremont. I may not like some of the stuff he's done recently, but comic books would not be what they are without him.
Absolutely not. It would not be.
Comic book movies would not be.
He changed comic book storytelling.
Exactly. And we don't have the type of shows and movies and stuff that we do without Chris Claremont. So I can agree. So like I will never take what he's done for comic books. I wouldn't be getting paid to write about comic books without him. That's a fact. Like, you know what I mean? Like it wouldn't be a profitable genre without people like Chris Claremont. And as much as I hate the guy, fuck Frank Miller, but is it Frank Miller? Which one's the dude who wrote
Frank Miller.
Yeah, fuck Frank Miller.
Frank Miller.
Yeah, fuck him. Like he's a dickhead. But
he changed it as well.
Yep.
For the good, Frank changed it for the good and the bad because everybody is not as good a writer as Frank, right?
Yeah.
And so
they try to be
want that. Yeah, they try to be that dark, gritty shit, and they can't write like he wrote Daredevil for a while. Some of Daredevil's best stories. He wrote The Dark Knight Returns. And I actually hate Frank Miller. Well, I mean, Frank Miller was if you read The Dark Knight Returns, it's like Reagan porn. It's like I'm just jacking off to Ronald Reagan. Like it's just I love Ronald Reagan, but the story's still great, so I'm gonna give him credit. But I hate The Dark Knight Returns because now everybody thinks Batman has to be this dark, brooding, loner, to himself, angry madman character, and I'm just like, the best stories I've read for Batman the last 15 years, none of that exists. Like the Scott Snyder run with Batman was all about the Bat family at the end of the day. Like that's what it was about. And it was about he's not by himself, that he has other people. Like, and so everybody, whenever you look at like live action Batman, It's all based on Frank Miller. It's all based on that Dark Knight Returns shit. All of it. From Nolan and the shit that Snyder was doing, it's all of that.
I mean,
Robert,
Batman versus Superman was literally Frank Miller.
yeah, it's
But bad, but worse.
literally.
But to your point, Brandon, it annoys me that when people don't understand a comic book and then will watch a movie and go, "This isn't what they're like in the comic books." You're like, "That's not true. That's absolutely not true." It was definitely prevalent during She-Hulk, when I think it was I want to say it was Dan Slott who was writing She-Hulk, and he was talking about how fantastic it was, and he basically said, all of you guys saying how this doesn't hold up to the comic book is wrong. He's like, I've written more She-Hulk comic books than anybody, and this is exactly what is written in the comic book. So what are y'all talking about? So for people who are like, oh, he's just dark and brooding and da-da-da-da, I'm like, you're wrong. Like, Batman the Animated Series, while it was dark, and from what I was told, it was drawn on like black paper, it wasn't really that dark.
It wasn't.
Batman made jokes. Batman was fun. And it also showed that Joker can be psychotic without necessarily having to cut somebody's face off. In a lot of the writers now, Tom King, Chip Zdarsky, there was another writer who was doing Batman, but they've also made it a point where it's like, it's also not his money.
Yeah.
Like, I love that a lot of these new writers are making it a point to show you Batman would be just as good without his money. Like, he's struggling right now.
And that's another. Oh, sorry. Oh, my bad.
Go.
Because I just don't want to lose this, because this is like another reason I have an issue with legend status, right? Like, people hold on to these. This will be quick. People hold on to these characters that were created by these legends, right? That represent characters in a multiverse that can be all types of things, that can represent all types of things, and they do. There's multiple versions of Batman. There's multiple versions of Superman, even within the same universe, right? It's just different writers have different takes, and then so something gets so popular, and most people associate that with that character, and any deviation from that, right? They're gonna hate it. They're not gonna give it a chance, and I think that's like one poison bullet when it comes to that legend status, when it comes to to just the art in general, to the art form.
That's fair.
It kind of locks it, you know?
That's definitely fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, legendary, and again, I think we could say that legendary is subjective. Like, I talked about a podcaster previously, and I think that he has more than a few legendary songs. But again, it's because the stuff he was rapping about speaks to me. So, like, I can consider it legendary. I will go on record by saying that if there are certain stories that you can, I think there are all things here that we could all agree that we don't like. Maybe not the same thing, but there are things that we just think are just bad. But no matter how we feel about it, we can understand why it's a classic, or why this writer is legendary, or why it gets the praise that it does. Like, you know what I mean? But I think,
like Logan.
Huh?
Like Logan.
Yeah, like Logan. Logan's a perfect example. So before I forget, because Javi wanted my opinion on this, we were talking about it. What I say Drake is wrestling.
Oh my God! Yes.
So
please.
it was something that Brandon said. We were talking about the casual wrestling fan, which I am. I'm the casual wrestling fan. If someone says, "Hey, you should watch this," I'll check it out. If, like, Brandon, and shout out to Diddy, they'll send me stuff, say, "Hey, you need to check this out." Otherwise, I kind of just keep up with Instagram. I'll go on Peacock, I'll go on Hulu, and just kind of check out things and fast forward through stuff that I don't really care about. Drake's music is kind of like that. It's super popular. A lot of people, like, obviously millions, if not billions of people love it. He's entertaining. He's putting on a character. And you're never going to find more than 5 people who like him for the same reasons. Drake is wrestling. Drake is professional wrestling. He's even Canadian.
It's hilarious. You think he's part of the Hart family, the Hart dynasty?
Yeah, Drake is part of the Hart Dynasty. Yo, the Hart Dynasty of the Hart Dynasty of rap would probably be Drake, the Migos, and Lil Yachty.
well, I think those are some of they have some of the best wrestlers of all time in my opinion. So
They do.
you know how I feel about Drake.
Jericho can suck a fat bag of Jericho can suck a fat bag of unwanted dicks, but he's one of the greatest sports entertainers ever. Bret Hart's one of the greatest. Chris Benoit's one of the greatest. Owen Hart.
Yeah.
You can go down.
So let's take that. Let's take that analogy even further, right? When it comes to, because you know how I feel about. I think Drake, and I think Brandon agrees with me. Maybe for different reasons, but he's gonna go down as one of the greatest of all time, right? Just
I agree. At
this point, it's kind of crazy. This run is crazy, right? Like it doesn't make sense at this point.
There was like, I think it was like 3 years, or it was like there was an extended amount of time where Drake had at least one song on the Billboard Top 100 consistently.
Yeah.
And and granted, it's a different era in streaming and all sorts of technology can help inflate numbers. But even if you're inflating these numbers, that really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because the music wasn't good, and granted, I'm not necessarily a big fan of it, but if the music wasn't popular, it wouldn't be up there.
And that's the thing about Drake. Drake is so lucrative, and he's making so much money off of deals that people really don't make that much money off of. Like I'm talking about $500 million almost off of some of these deals, is because they don't have to inflate his numbers. Really, they use and I'm not saying this as a fan. I'm saying this as just looking at the industry. They use him to inflate numbers. Like if they have a new artist or something, like he's one of those artists, him and Bad Bunny, whoever, they put on a track and the track goes. So he has that market appeal. I don't know why, but it just is. But as far as why I like him as a rapper, he's nice, man. Like I just never understood. I just never understood why people don't see him as a good rapper. Like I just don't get it. And then just his story. I never watched Degrassi. Like you guys introduced me to the fact that he was on that show. So I don't know anything about that, but like his story, as far as I know it, like the fact that he's still with all the people he came up with, you know what I mean? And he's putting his people on. Like he's staying loyal. He's making crazy money, and it looks like he's having fun, taking care of his kid, bringing out good music, bro. Like I don't get the hate. Somebody needs to explain it to me.
I don't get the hate. I joke about once upon a time I was a Drake hater. Honestly, you can go on Facebook and you can see me say that I hate Drake on a cellular level. I was a hater because I didn't really know much about him, and everything that he put out I thought was ass. Like, you know what I mean? But for the most part, like now, I still don't think, if someone said to me, do a top 100 greatest hip hop artists of all time, and we're just talking the music, Drake doesn't break my top 75 if we're talking just the music.
Yeah.
Now, if we're talking about what Brandon was talking about when it comes to professional wrestling, and we're not talking about just the songs, we're not talking about just the music, we're talking about personality, we're talking about influence, we're talking about the
recognizability.
Thank you. That was the word I was thinking of, like how recognizable he is. Drake's
Q rating is through the roof.
Yes. So, like, yes, if we're talking about everything it encompasses, then Drake's probably top 10, top 15, maybe. Because it's like me and Brandon had a quick conversation about this, about Roman Reigns. Like, what Roman Reigns is doing right now in wrestling is unprecedented. Like, he's considering, and I'm going to take something that Brandon said, considering how down people were on him because he wasn't, quote unquote, a good wrestler, but he was still great in the ring, he shouldn't be as popular as he is right now. But that all changed. After his I think it was leukemia, I think he had. But after his diagnoses, he took supposedly took some acting classes, And he just came back as just this sports entertainment force of fucking nature, and it's just been fantastic. But then you look at a guy like, we can take John Cena, who had the same kind of run, but John Cena's run was longer. And it got so funny that people hated John Cena, but they were still buying t-shirts. And Brandon can attest to this. You can be booed, you can be cheered, what you don't want is silence. And regardless of what happened with John Cena, he always had people emotional about him. All the time. Drake is the same way. Regardless of how you feel about him, you can hate him, but you're gonna talk about him. You gotta acknowledge him. You have to just understand that he is as popular and as good and as marketable. And like you said, Brandon, his Q rating is through the roof. These are the things that are the most important when it comes to being an entertainer. Can you bring in money? Javi, does Drake bring in money?
He brings in buttloads, bro.
Like, you know what I mean? And that's what it comes down to. Like, Drake brings in the money. That's really. What else can you say?
He has a private jet that was wrapped by Virgil.
But that's what I mean. Like, when you are just, excuse the terminology, but when you're that nigga, that's just really how it goes.
And let's not discount the fact that that's just off of rap. You didn't have to like sell liquor, right? Like this is this is off of record deals in concert sales, ticket sales. That's when he says he does Beatles numbers, he's not lying, bro.
Do you know the other thing I don't get about why people don't like Drake? You know what? I figured out what it is. Do you know why people don't like Drake?
Why?
They see too much of themselves in him.
Oh,
Drake is a fanboy.
Facts.
He team hops, he player hops, he has like celebrities and athletes playing basketball wherever he wants to. He gets to do all the things that the people who hate him want to do. We did an episode last year when I just openly admitted that I would love to hang out with Drake. Let's call it like it is. And I said it earlier, I was a hater. And that could have been the reason why. He's literally living the life that a lot of us wish that we could do. He puts out music, plays basketball, he gets all the women, like he dodges all of these like battles and the discrepancies in his life, and like it's almost like he's he's anti-50.
Damn it, Wade.